Welcome into First Take on this Feel Good Friday. Thank you for being with us. Obviously, Stephen A., an incredible game last night in LA. You were in the building, and we'll get to what that means.
Sometimes everything you thought you knew about an NBA icon gets flipped upside down in a single moment. That's exactly what happened when LeBron James unleashed a heated, very public confrontation with ESPN's Stephen A. Smith. The scene was a Lakers versus Knicks matchup, usually a routine evening of basketball entertainment, and then it turned into something else entirely. People who witnessed it up close.
For the Lakers and Knicks in just a moment, but S.A., there was a moment in the game that we want to address.
Described LeBron's sudden outburst as both shocking and strangely calculated. Why would someone with his level of fame and experience explode like that for everyone to see? And how did Stephen A. handle being put in the hot seat
that was LeBron
when he was
James,
only there to watch the game as a regular fan? The story doesn't end on the court, though. As soon as clips of LeBron's tirade surfaced, the internet spiraled into debates about nepotism, Bronny James's path to the NBA, the so-called LeBron Protection Program, and whether Stephen A. Smith was once again bending over backward for the self-proclaimed king. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. What followed dragged in other notable players, Draymond Green, Kevin Love, and unleashed a deeper conversation about the NBA's culture.
That was LeBron James coming up to me, unexpectedly I might add, to confront me about
dropping viewership, and a growing sense that certain stars might be too protected to face real criticism. By the end of this saga, you'll be wondering if this meltdown was an isolated incident or just another example of the power dynamics fueling the league's drama. Let's dive in, uncover every angle of this strange showdown, and see how it's changing the conversation around LeBron, his son Bronny, and the future of the NBA. It started out as a regular night for Stephen A. Smith, who decided to catch the Lakers versus Knicks game in person.
Making sure that I mind what I say about his son.
He wasn't there in a professional capacity. No cameras rolling for his usual commentary, no earpiece feeding him stats, and certainly no official segments lined up. He was off duty and enjoying the action with none other than comedian and writer Larry David. The odd pairing alone might have been a scene out of a sitcom, but what happened next felt more like a dramatic confrontation. At some point in the game, LeBron James broke away from the usual hustle and flow of the court and approached Stephen A. with a fury few had seen before. Witnesses later recalled how LeBron's voice rose above the crowd noise, spouting phrases like, "Stop effing with my son," in a harsh tone that caught everyone off guard.
Can't repeat the words because they ain't suited for FCC airwaves. That's what he was doing.
Why was he so upset? Stephen A. had offered criticisms and hot takes on Bronny James's performance in the NBA, criticisms that clearly rubbed LeBron the wrong way. In that highly charged moment, LeBron's stature as an all-time great and the usual sense of decorum simply vanished. Instead, fans saw a father enraged, ignoring the fans, the referees, and the cameras broadcasting every second. This wasn't just a loud exchange, though. It happened in the middle of a nationally televised game. LeBron's words echoed through the arena, and social media lit up instantly, painting LeBron's behavior as humiliating, out of line, or simply unprofessional. Skeptics quickly argued that if Bronny was put on an NBA team thanks to his father's name, then of course he would face heavier public scrutiny. Others asked why LeBron felt the need to confront Stephen A. so publicly.
I thought long and hard about this over the last few hours because I had no intentions, Molly, of talking about this at all.
When he could have just made a phone call or sent a message. The meltdown fed into a bigger question. Did LeBron want the drama to play out for all to see? Or did his emotions genuinely boil over until he couldn't hold back any longer? Right after the game, the buzz became deafening. People on both sides of the argument were either applauding LeBron for protecting his son or condemning him for acting like a bully toward a sports analyst who was simply doing his job. But that wasn't the whole story. In typical Stephen A. Smith fashion, he didn't stay silent for long. He went on air to describe his version of events, looking notably rattled but still determined to spin the confrontation. According to him, LeBron approached in full dad mode, not as a star athlete. From Stephen A.'s perspective, this distinction mattered. He implied that anyone in LeBron's shoes would feel outraged if they thought their child was being unfairly scrutinized on national television. But this stance caught many viewers off guard, especially coming from the same Stephen A., who once labeled himself the toughest voice in sports commentary. How could someone so forthright about every other NBA player suddenly shift into a position that excused or even justified LeBron's outburst. Comment sections across the internet buzzed with accusations that Stephen A. was bending the knee or jockniffing again, a term critics have used to suggest he's overly deferential to certain superstar athletes. He didn't help his case by expressing sympathy for LeBron's position. At one point, Stephen A. admitted he felt badly that the confrontation even happened. On top of that, he suggested LeBron's reaction was a normal parental response. To those who believed Bronny's presence in the NBA is fueled by nepotism, Stephen A. seemed to say, "So what? He's LeBron's son. It makes sense." This naturally fanned the flames of the debate. Some insisted that it's only fair to question a player's performance if they might have received special treatment. Others pointed out that nepotism is part of any profession, especially entertainment and sports, and that Bronny has to prove himself regardless of his father's fame. Meanwhile, a different tension was simmering beneath the surface. Observers noted that if LeBron truly wanted to handle this quietly, he could have reached out to Stephen A. privately. They have mutual contacts, including LeBron's longtime agent who directly deals with big media figures all the time. Instead, the confrontation exploded on a public stage for everyone to witness. That led many to ask, was it a planned media stunt, a spontaneously emotional moment, or a bit of both? And what happened next would shock everyone. To understand the drama, you have to understand Bronny James's place in it. Bronny arrived in the NBA under a spotlight so intense that every step he took was scrutinized. Early critics argued that he got drafted largely because of his father's influence. As soon as he joined the G League, countless analysts pored over his stats, micro-analyzing each game. Every missed shot or turnover was an opportunity for doubters to claim he didn't belong there, while every decent performance fueled fans' hopes that he might have real star potential. LeBron has always made it clear he wants to share the NBA court with his son, generating more speculation about Bronny's role. Was he truly an NBA-caliber player, or had his father pulled strings to get him that slot? The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle, but the reality is that Bronny, being so young and so heavily compared to his legendary father, became a magnet for heated takes on sports media. When Stephen A. offered his commentary about Bronny's less-than-stellar showings, it inflamed a discussion that has been brewing for years. But Bronny's performance, or lack thereof, is only part of the puzzle. When you're the child of a sports icon who has a net worth exceeding $1 billion, you're hardly stepping onto the court as an underdog. Critics say that if LeBron wanted to shield Bronny from negativity, the surest way would have been letting him build his own path rather than forcing the spotlight on him. Supporters counter that Bronny shouldn't have to hide his last name just to avoid scrutiny. Either way, the sequence of events shows that once the public, and especially Stephen A. Smith, focused on Bronny's stats, LeBron's patience wore thin. The fatherly side of him decided to break conventional boundaries and speak up in a manner no one expected. Still, the saga continued, because the story wasn't just about the father and the son. It was about an NBA ecosystem so tightly knit that stars, commentators, and executives often blur the lines between professional criticism and personal loyalty. Little did anyone realize that more players would dive into the conversation, intensifying the drama even further. In the days following LeBron's courtside clash, other high-profile NBA figures began chiming in. Draymond Green, known as a fierce competitor, now also recognized as an outspoken supporter of LeBron, took exception to anyone daring to criticize the king. Rumor has it Draymond's allegiance runs deep, especially since signing with Clutch Sports, the agency associated with LeBron. While not explicitly confirming every detail, whispers suggest Draymond was privately letting folks know that his loyalty lies squarely with LeBron, no matter the scenario. This unity can look like a tight-knit fraternity or a shield against genuine critique, depending on who you ask. Kevin Love, another player who shares history with LeBron from their Cleveland Cavaliers days, also jumped into the fray. While he's generally low-key compared to Draymond, Love's reaction to Stephen A.'s initial statements hinted at frustration. He posted a pointed tweet in response to a comment Stephen A. made, suggesting that the popular analyst didn't have much of an option but to address the controversy after ESPN demanded it. Love's digital response had an undercurrent of, "You can't dodge this," implying that Stephen A. shouldn't play the victim about covering the story. All these interactions underscore a unique phenomenon in the NBA. Players and analysts are often more than just professionals in the same industry. They can be friends, business partners, or even adversaries behind the scenes. When powerful figures cluster around a single superstar, the line between balanced commentary and favoritism can blur. Critics say that certain journalists or talk show hosts end up tiptoeing around top athletes to maintain access, creating a feedback loop that's anything but objective. This swirl of personal ties, backdoor deals, and protective gestures leaves many viewers feeling that the NBA is becoming less about the game and more about storylines. The league's culture, once heralded for intense rivalries and fearless commentary, now looks like a social club where criticizing the wrong star can put your relationships in jeopardy. But that wasn't the end of the conversation. Another layer emerged when Stephen A. made puzzling remarks about LeBron's finances and how Bronny supposedly deserved big money, an angle that sent shockwaves through sports media circles. When Stephen A. Smith opened up about the confrontation, one segment of his argument turned the spotlight squarely on financial matters. He expressed the opinion that Bronny James essentially deserves the money and perks because LeBron himself had been underpaid throughout his career. This statement rattled fans who know the numbers. LeBron's on-court contracts alone have amassed over $500 million. When you factor in his endorsements, business ventures, and savvy investments, his net worth has soared above $1 billion. Underpaid? The claim felt absurd to many. Still, Stephen A. believed that everything LeBron has done for the NBA, its growth, its marketing power, the immense revenue tied to his presence, warranted an even bigger payday. In his eyes, Bronny's earning potential could be seen as a form of cosmic balance, compensating for all the league has gained from LeBron. Critics found this logic bewildering, pointing out that nepotism rarely sits well with fans who want to see players earn their roster spots and salaries purely on merit. Furthermore, it was odd for a seasoned analyst like Stephen A. to conflate a father's stardom with a son's rightful place in professional basketball. That's not to say Bronny has no talent. Plenty of scouts see promise. But the swirling conversation about favoritism and money overshadowed any objective evaluation of Bronny's skills. Instead, the narrative turned into a question of, should Bronny even be on the Lakers if he's not producing remarkable stats? And with Stephen A. practically handing out passes for huge paychecks, fans increasingly wondered if they could trust his commentary. In the midst of all this back and forth about finances, nepotism, and the father-son dynamic, a broader question came to light. Is the NBA culture fueling these dramas? The league depends on big stars to attract viewership and sponsors, so it's not surprising if some top personalities get protective coverage. Yet, as the controversies stack up, fans begin to suspect they're watching a choreographed show more than an authentic sporting competition. And what happened next left everyone rethinking how basketball is presented to the masses. The NBA's ratings have been a hot topic over the last few seasons. Many analysts point to shifting viewer habits, streaming services, and the general decline of cable television to explain why fewer people are tuning in live. But another growing sentiment among dedicated fans is that excessive drama, especially drama that feels orchestrated, undermines the pure excitement of the sport. In the past, on-court rivalries used to captivate people. Now, it's often backstage politics or online feuds that dominate headlines. LeBron's confrontation with Stephen A. might have been a fleeting outburst, but it symbolizes something bigger, a league frequently overshadowed by tabloid-style storylines. Sports talk shows thrive on controversy to drive ratings, while players utilize social media to control narratives. When Stephen A. calls LeBron the GOAT one week, then tries to half-heartedly challenge him the next, viewers can't help but sense a choreographed dance. The question is whether the audience is growing tired of these theatrics. Some believe the NBA's star-driven approach, which places certain players beyond reproach, creates a stale viewing experience. If everybody is either praising the biggest superstars or carefully navigating around them, the authenticity of commentary gets lost. Others argue that the heated feuds and larger-than-life personalities are exactly what keep the sport relevant in a crowded entertainment landscape. Whichever side you're on, the data doesn't lie. Live TV viewership has slipped for many major sporting events, and the NBA is no exception. Leagues are challenged to figure out how to keep fans engaged without devolving into soap opera territory. For better or worse, LeBron's altercation with Stephen A. exemplifies the tightrope the league is walking. But the storyline was still evolving, and more people would weigh in, leaving fans to wonder if the conversation would ever circle back to what happens on the court. It's no secret that Stephen A. Smith has connections with countless athletes. He's built a reputation on forging friendships and rivalries that sometimes blur in the public eye. The LeBron fiasco brought to light the complexity of these relationships. Draymond Green, now firmly in LeBron's camp, reportedly gave Stephen A. the cold shoulder after the controversy blew up. At the same time, Kevin Love aired grievances about how Stephen A. was handling the story. These strong reactions from NBA veterans hint at a landscape where personal alliances can overshadow objective analysis. Is this just how the modern NBA works? Many commentators believe so. The days of raw rivalries that existed solely on the court may be giving way to a world where brand deals, shared agencies, and mutual investments tie star players together. That can stifle honest debates, because no one wants to offend a colleague or friend who holds power in shaping their future deals or public image. Critics accuse Stephen A. of being too embedded in this culture. They see his relationship with LeBron as a perfect example. One moment, he's praising the King's legacy. The next, he's offering mild critiques that never truly challenge LeBron's status or actions. It fosters the impression that star commentators protect star players, and star players use star commentators to control the story. If this cycle continues unbroken, viewers might feel there's little authentic coverage left to trust. Yet Stephen A. isn't the only figure caught in this web. Broadcasters, podcast hosts, and even ex-players turned media personalities often find themselves in similar dilemmas. Balancing integrity with access is tricky. If they speak too harshly, they could lose interviews or inside information. If they're too soft, fans accuse them of pandering. And that's what makes the entire LeBron-Stephen A. saga so emblematic. It's a case study in how personal, professional, and public narratives collide in the modern era of sports. One final question remains. How does this saga end? Or does it ever end at all? By now, you might be wondering if there's any resolution in sight. Will LeBron James quietly move on from this confrontation? Or does he have more pointed messages for critics of Bronny's career? Will Stephen A. Smith revert to his familiar routines of flashy commentary? Or does this altercation change how he addresses LeBron going forward? And what about Bronny? Does he prove the doubters wrong by transforming into a legitimate NBA contributor? Or does the conversation around nepotism become a permanent shadow over his career? The NBA has thrived on controversy for decades, but the current climate feels different. It's not just about calling out a missed shot or a bad trade. It's about questioning entire career paths, family dynamics, and the authenticity of commentary. Fans split into two camps: those who relish the spectacle of drama and those who want to watch pure basketball without the constant swirl of speculation. As the dust settles, everyone involved might realize that constant drama could be both a blessing and a curse. It draws eyeballs, but can also alienate people searching for genuine sporting competition. No matter which side you land on, there's no denying that this confrontation between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith pulled back the curtain on the deep interconnectedness of NBA stars and media figures. It forced fans to look closely at how lines are blurred, how loyalty can compromise honesty, and how even a father defending his son can morph into a headline, grabbing saga that overshadows the actual games. For now, the last question to leave you with is whether these relationships will keep fueling controversies to the point of overshadowing basketball itself, or whether a new generation of athletes and analysts will choose a different path, one that dares to break the cycle of protectiveness and favoritism. Either way, the stage is set. The league's biggest name is clearly unafraid to call out a prominent analyst in public, and that analyst, for all his bold proclamations, seems unwilling to push back too hard. Bronny's career, meanwhile, remains an evolving storyline that will either justify LeBron's faith in him or cement the critics' claims of nepotism. In the end, you get to decide if this spectacle is all part of the modern sports experience or an unsettling sign that the NBA has become more about theatrics than competition. Perhaps the next time these two cross paths, we'll see another chapter written in this ongoing drama. And who knows how many more players and commentators will be drawn into the fray. Only one thing seems certain: with LeBron James at the center, the controversies will never be in short supply, and the spotlight on this father-son duo will keep intensifying, for better or worse.